Have you ever felt like your brain is running on old software in a world that's just constantly updating? You're not alone. The world has changed so much faster than our internal operating systems can keep up. So today, we're going to build a new user manual for our minds, a guide for upgrading how we think, how we read, and how we feel so we can actually thrive in this modern world. Let's start by figuring out the core problem. This quote right here, it just gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? Our modern world, everything from social media to the 24-hour news cycle, it's all built to reward immediacy. You know, the hot takes, the instant reactions, the emotional intensity. That stuff gets all the attention. Depth, on the other hand? Well, that takes time. It needs patience. And that puts it at a serious disadvantage. So this brings us to a really crucial question. If we think of our mind as an operating system, is its core software, is it outdated for the environment it's running in? Are the default settings that served us for like thousands of years now becoming bugs in the face of this constant, high-speed information overload? To answer that, let's kick off with Section 1 and really diagnose the problem, the core dilemma facing anyone who tries to think deeply in a world that frankly seems to prefer that we don't. So what's so fascinating here is the direct conflict this slide lays out. On one side, you've got deep thinking. It needs time, right? Time to gather evidence, consider opposing views, and just sit with uncertainty. But on the other side, you've got the attention economy, which rewards the exact opposite: immediate takes, simple stories, and high emotional impact. This mismatch, this is why reflection can feel so inefficient and kind of draining today. Okay, so if the environment is the problem, what's the solution? Well, it involves a pretty fundamental shift in perspective. See, it's not about changing our thoughts. It's about changing our relationship to our thoughts. And this is what we call the metacognitive shift. The key to this entire upgrade is this one concept, metacognition. And put simply, it's just thinking about your own thinking. It's the ability to step back and observe your mental processes as they're happening, to see the patterns and choose how to respond instead of just getting swept away by them. So if metacognition is the tool, what's the bug we're trying to fix? In metacognitive therapy, it's called the cognitive attentional syndrome, or CAS for short. This is a set of processes that our minds get stuck in, which, without us realizing it, just ends up prolonging our distress. It's the mental equivalent of just spinning your wheels in the mud. And this slide brilliantly shows what CAS actually looks like in practice. It's made up of three main patterns of extended thinking. First, you've got worry and rumination, where you're just endlessly cycling through the same negative thoughts. Second is threat monitoring, constantly scanning your environment or even your own body for danger. And third, you have these coping behaviors that actually make things worse. And all of these are driven by this hidden belief that all this thinking will somehow help us. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem and we've identified the bug. Now for the fun part. Let's install the upgrades. This next section is your cognitive upgrade kit. 3 powerful tools to reboot how you handle thoughts, information, and emotions. Our first upgrade comes straight from metacognitive therapy. It's called detached mindfulness. And instead of getting all tangled up in your thoughts or trying to fight them, you just learn to observe them from a distance. You start to see them as just events in your mind, kind of like clouds passing in the sky. You realize you don't have to engage with them, you don't have to believe them, and you certainly don't have to get rid of them. And that's the crucial point. This quote really nails it. The goal isn't to stop having negative thoughts, because let's be real, that's impossible. The goal is to develop a new, healthier response to them. You learn to unhook yourself from that cycle of worry and rumination that we saw back in the CAS model. Next up, let's upgrade how we process all this information coming at us. This tool is a huge shift from the slow, word-by-word decoding we all learned as kids to a much more powerful way of understanding: right brain reading. To get this, we need to look at how our brain processes information. Your left brain is a serial processor. It handles things one step at a time, decoding individual words. This is where most of us stop. But your right brain, it's a parallel processor. It sees whole patterns and concepts all at once. So right brain reading taps into this power, focusing on comprehending whole ideas in chunks, which naturally lets your speed pick up because you're focused on the meaning, not just the words. And for our final upgrade, we are tackling emotions. For centuries, we've pretty much seen feelings as these irrational glitches. But what if they're not?
What if they are actually sophisticated algorithms our brains use for high-speed decision-making? This chart explains it perfectly. Let's say you get $100. Now, old school logic says $100 is $100, but our emotional brain knows that's just not true. If you expected to get $200, that $100 feels like a loss. That's disappointment. But if you expected nothing, that same $100 feels like a huge win. That's elation. See? The value isn't absolute. It's totally relative to our expectations. So the bottom line is this. Our feelings are a form of high-speed calculation. They aren't random. They're the output of a really complex algorithm that weaves together past experiences, future hopes, and the current situation into a single, powerful signal. An expectation is the key variable that changes the entire result of that emotional math.
So we've got our new tools. We can handle our thoughts, process information way more effectively, and understand our emotions as data. Now let's bring it all together and see how we can use this upgraded OS to really thrive. This is probably the single most important takeaway from all of this. The answer to living in a fast-paced world isn't to give up on depth and just join the noise. No way. The answer is to become more strategic about how and where you apply that depth. And here are 5 strategies to do exactly that. 1, choose your arenas. You just can't go deep on everything. 2, develop communication compression, mastering the art of summarizing complex ideas simply. 3, balance reflection with action, so your thinking actually leads to doing something. 4, regulate your information intake, because your mental energy is not infinite. And 5, avoid intellectual isolation by finding other people who also value depth. This quote just beautifully sums up the long-term advantage of thinking deeply. While our culture might reward those immediate, fast reactions day to day, it's the clear, well-reasoned thinking that builds stronger foundations and ultimately wins out when things get truly complex. So as we wrap this up, just remember this. While a world obsessed with speed rewards the fastest answer, it's clarity that builds things that last. And the question I want to leave you with is, what kind of foundation is your thinking building?